Which is charge specific? The sixth. The sixth is charge specific. The fifth can cover all charges. But it's the sixth that's always charge specific. A person who's in custody is not entitled to Miranda warnings unless the police question him. True or false? Easy. Easy. How can we make questions any easier? It's not hide the ball, okay? You know that's true. A person who's not being questioned is not entitled to Miranda warnings. Miranda applies when you have what? Custodial interrogation. Not just custody, not just interrogation, but both. A defendant who has invoked his Fifth Amendment right to counsel and has been released on bond may not be questioned about offenses unrelated to the one for which he's charged. Can the police ask him about other offenses if he's released?
Mm-hmm.
It's not hide the ball, it's true. We've talked about it many times, right? Yeah. It's only what? Continuous custody that makes it include all offenses, right? So if he's out on bond, he's not continuous custody, right? Are Miranda rights required for booking information from a defendant who's in custody?
No.
Okay, when you get to some of these questions, you know, just read the question carefully. You don't try to make it harder than it is. If it seems easy, it's probably because it is. If you've studied this stuff and understand it. If you're falling back on something or you don't understand any of this, now it's when we talk about it, okay? Fabricating a lab report is a kind of police trickery that will always cause a defendant's statements to be ruled involuntary. True or false?
False.
Thank you. Some of these seem too easy. It's pretty straightforward stuff. It really is. If you kept up with the reading, it should, all of you should seem easy. We've already talked about kind of the statements or questions where Miranda warnings are not required, even if he's in custody. Right? We just talked about that. Public safety, booking questions, spontaneous volunteer answers. Can interrogation take several different forms, or must it be a specific question? Does interrogation have to be questioned? Can conduct be interrogation? Yes. Yes. Remember what we said, anything the police say or do designed to elicit a confession. Gestures calculated to elicit a response. Which of the following by itself is generally held not to be overly coercive police conduct? Threats of violence, deprivation of food, deprivation of sleep, trickery or deception. Talked about it many times, haven't we? Hardly ever people that alone need to an involuntary statement or even be considered coercive. Here's one I want to make sure we talked about. If the defendant's arrested, and he's given his Miranda warnings, and he's interrogated, and the first thing out of his mouth is, I don't want to talk to you. And that never changes. Can I, as a prosecutor, introduce that fact to the jury?
No.
No. No. Now, if he talked, if he said something before he said that, all of that's admissible, right? But we can't just put before the jury, he had a chance to talk to the police and he chose not to. That's punishing him for exercising his constitutional right, right? And we're not going to do that. I don't know if we talked about that before, but I want to make sure you understand that. When a defendant invokes his right to remain silent after being advised of his Miranda rights, the prosecution cannot introduce evidence of that fact. Now, may a statement obtained in violation of Miranda be used for impeachment purposes?
No.
Let me think no. Let me think yes. It's the first thing we started out with tonight. Miranda, yes. Involuntary, no. Right? Miranda, yes. If there's a Miranda violation, we don't get to use it in our case in chief, but we can use it against him if he takes the stand and says something different. That's impeachment. That's rebuttal. It's an involuntary statement that the prosecution cannot use for any purpose. Okay? Make sure you've got that point written down. I told you, you're going to see at least one or two questions about it. A statement obtained in violation of Miranda can be used by the prosecution for impeachment. Yes.
So, you can't use it for any other purpose than impeachment?
Well, yeah, but impeachment means either you can ask him about it, well, didn't you tell the police something different? Yes, you can use it for that. And if he denies it, I can also introduce it. I can then introduce the statement if he denies making it. That's called rebuttal. Impeachment, for our purposes, impeachment is impeachment. You know, the way you do it is, he tells the police, I wasn't there. He gets on the stand and says, I was there, and the victim pulled out a knife, and I hit him with the stick. Well, wait a minute. You told the police you weren't even there, didn't you? No, I never said that to the police. And that comes in.
Even though
To impeach him, even though it was a Miranda violation. All he gets out of a Miranda violation is we don't get to put it on in our case in chief.
What is that exactly?
That's when we're introducing evidence. Okay, every criminal trial, it's my burden. I gotta put on evidence. Defendants don't have to put on anything. He didn't have to take that stand and say something different, see? Now, if it was an involuntary statement, if the police roughed him up, and he said, all right, I'll tell you, I wasn't there. They said, you guys, you beat it out of him. That's involuntary.
But it was voluntary.
We can't use that for anything. He can get up and say, I was there, he pulled a knife, I shot him, all that. We don't get to say anything about an involuntary statement. Why not? An involuntary statement, how reliable is that? I mean, everybody in this room, myself included, if coerced enough, we will say anything. Trust me, you will say anything if you're coerced enough. Some people it takes a whole lot of coercion. Some people don't take so much. So the reliability of an involuntary statement is nil. It's not reliable enough to use even to impeach him. But if it was only a Miranda violation, but a voluntary statement, but it violated Miranda, he had already said, I don't want to talk. I don't want to talk to you. I don't care. Either you were there or you weren't. Were you there? I don't want to talk to you. Either you were there or you weren't. Were you there? Okay, I wasn't there. Involuntary. But if it's just, didn't give him Miranda, then you keep questioning him. And they say, you violated Miranda by continuing to question him. Well, now, it's a voluntary statement, but I violated Miranda. So I don't get to tell the jury, he told us he wasn't there. And odds are I might not want to if it's self-serving like that.
But the fact of the matter is, if it's involuntary, it's not reliable enough to use, even to show the jury he's lying to them. But it's only a Miranda violation. Told the police, I wasn't there, I swear I wasn't there, and I was at my sister's house the whole time. Then he gets up and says, but we never advised him of Miranda. He was in custody, you were asking him. That's a Miranda violation, you don't get to use it. Okay, I'm not gonna use it. I'm gonna put in my witnesses, I'm gonna put on my physical evidence, I'm not gonna put on anything about the defendant's statements. The defendant decides to take the stand. I was there, and he pulled a knife. Whoa, well, that's not what you told the police. See? Miranda, yes, can be used to impeach. Involuntary statement, no, can't use it for anything, It's just not reliable. The self-incrimination clause of the Fifth Amendment protects a person from providing a blood sample, true or false? False. Self-incrimination clause of the Fifth Amendment protects a person from providing handwriting sample. False. Self-incrimination clause of the Fifth Amendment protects a person from being a witness against himself. There we go. There we go.
Yes. Sorry, just a side question real quick. After someone's been arrested, do they have to have a search warrant to take blood and hair and all that? So they, you don't have to fingerprints and everything else, but.
After a person's been arrested, you have to have a search warrant to take blood and hair and all that. It may depend, okay? What's Fourth Amendment say? Well, normally if you gotta have what? Probable cause. And if you're not gonna get a search warrant, you need some kind of what? Exigency, right? Okay. Now, if you're gonna draw blood, we normally get a search warrant. There are cases that talk about in a hit and run where you arrest the defendant and you've taken people to the hospital and you've got an exigency because it's dissipating from his blood, that doing so without a search warrant has been upheld if the exigency exists. But understand this, we don't get a search warrant or anything to what? Take fingerprints. We don't get a search warrant to take his picture. And we don't get a search warrant anymore to take a sample of. Now, if we get, a lot of times our detectives will get a search warrant for DNA because we have statutes in Virginia that have been upheld. Well, a specific one that went to the U.S. Supreme Court was from Maryland. I'm amazed Maryland even saw the light about that, but they do have a statute that allows people arrested for felonies for the police to take a sample, a buckle swab, take a Q-tip inside the cheek. And that's a DNA sample. They say, we already take your picture, we already take your fingerprints, this is not intrusive, we'll take that too. And the U.S. Supreme Court recently upheld that. Even though the Maryland Supreme Court struck it down, the U.S. Supreme Court said, no, it's okay. So, for those things, we normally will go ahead and get a search warrant for our buccal swab sample, because the sample that we take pursuant to our statute, it stays with the arresting, like it would be at the jail. And what we're gonna want is something to send to the lab. So a lot of times, we've already got probable cause to arrest him, so we know we'll have probable cause for DNA. So most of the time we will, but to answer your question, no, we don't have to, if we have a statute that already permits something like that. It's reasonableness, Fourth Amendment reasonableness, but as far as drawing blood, you have to be able to come up with an exigency, or better yet, get a search warrant. If time is not such an important factor, and yes, that alcohol is dissipating, but, that same officer that pulled him over doesn't have to be going and getting a search warrant. We got radios and telephones, cell phones, and all, we can have one guy at the magistrate's office getting a search warrant while he's taking him to the hospital. Now, you can see several questions about stuff like, when a suspect is arrested for a felony, the police should, 1, wait till after his arraignment to obtain a statement.
2, wait and see whether he will initiate communication. 3, postpone questioning him until after he has an attorney. Or 4, advise him of his Miranda rights and obtain his version of events. Which is correct? Anybody?
The last one?
Anybody think any of the others are correct? They're not. They're incorrect. They're wrong. Okay? What the right thing is to do, if it's something important enough for a law enforcement officer to make an arrest, by golly, it's important enough for him to give him his Miranda rights and get his version of events. That's what they do. That's what they should do. That's not what they always do. Apparently, there are some police officers that think one of these other three is correct. I try to educate them otherwise. I'll be in Richmond from like 8 till 1 tomorrow, making sure that a lot of our homicide investigators throughout Virginia remember these things, because some of them don't. I mean, when I get in front of a room full of seasoned homicide detectives, and I ask, if a person says, I want a lawyer during custodial interrogation, do you have to stop the interrogation? And they go, oh, yeah, stop the interrogation. Okay. If a person says, I don't want to talk to you during custodial interrogation, do you have to stop the interrogation? Oh, no, you can keep going then. No. People forget these things. And it's important that they be reminded from time to time to time. Because, you get in your mind, I know there's something different about the right to remain silent and the right to counsel. And they just get confused about where the difference comes in. And, I'm going to be hammering home. And the same for you folks. It's important for you to know all of these as well. For purposes of Miranda, custody means any circumstances where the defendant is not free to leave. True or false?
True.
How about routine traffic stops? How about restraint on freedom of movement associated with a formal arrest? There we go. A person's Fifth Amendment right to counsel attaches when he's suspected of a crime? No. When the police have no other suspects? No. During custodial interrogation? I like that. Right? During custodial interrogation? Not. At the commencement of adversarial proceedings? No. That's talking about which right to counsel? Sixth. Okay? Keep in mind the difference. Fifth Amendment, custodial interrogation. Sixth Amendment, adversarial proceedings. Right? Write it down, you haven't already. It's right on those slides. When the defendant invokes his Fifth Amendment right to counsel under Miranda, the police may question him about unrelated offenses once he is no longer in custody. True or false? Yeah, say that out loud.
Yeah.
True, it's true, yes, you can do that. When the defendant invokes his Fifth Amendment right to counsel under Miranda, the police may question him after a reasonable period of time. True or false?
True.
Yes. Good. When the defendant invokes his Fifth Amendment right to counsel under Miranda, the police may question him after a reasonable period of time.
False.
Very good. Very good. Question him what? When he initiates or he has his order. Fifth Amendment, custodial interrogation triggers. Sixth Amendment, adversarial proceedings trigger. Right? We just said it. When must a police officer inform a suspect of his Miranda rights? We all know the answer to that, don't we? How about this? As soon as a suspect is arrested for any crime, true or false?
False.
False. As soon as a suspect is arrested for a felony,
False.
true or false? Now, here's the question. When must a police officer inform a suspect of his Miranda rights? Prior to interrogating a suspect who is in custody. There we go. Fits right in, doesn't it? Fits right in. None of this as soon as he's arrested stuff. You want to put this, all our favorite cop shows out of your mind.
I mean, yes, they do. I don't know of a single cop show where the guy's not giving his Miranda rights as soon as he's hooking him up. He doesn't have to do that. That person is not entitled, it's not required to give him Miranda rights at that point. And if he had just about to start mouthing off about the offense, and then he's reminded, if you do, we can use that against you, might he change his mind? Yeah. Our point is, why do it until you have to? When must a police officer inform a suspect of his Miranda rights prior to interrogating a suspect who is in custody? Okay? If a defendant who has invoked his Sixth Amendment right to counsel requests to speak with a police officer, the officer should do what? Good. You're going to see questions that don't say that, okay? You're going to see stuff that says, decline to speak to. That's almost always what that is always. Call his attorney. Speak with the defendant only about crimes for which he has not yet been charged. Document the request, remind him of his Miranda rights, and speak with him. Period. That's the one. That's what we do. If a defendant who has invoked his Fifth Amendment right to counsel requests to speak with a police officer, the officer should... Any difference? No. Document the request, remind the defendant of his Miranda rights, and speak with him. That's the correct answer. Okay? Why do anything else? The Constitution, that's what the Constitution requires, right? Why do anything else? Okay, here we go. During custodial interrogation about a robbery, the defendant invoked his right to remain silent. He was appointed an attorney the next day on the robbery charge and has been held in continuous custody since the interrogation. Now you receive information he may also have committed an unrelated murder. What should you do? Ask the defendant's attorney for permission to talk? Ask the defendant whether he's changed his mind about talking to you?